Today's video is going to be entirely in a Linux environment. I'm going to be creating a ASP.NET Core app, pushing it up to a repository, having the Azure Devops build and set up the release to eventually go to a Linux app service. Before we begin, I am running a VM of 1804 Ubuntu, and I have already installed .NET Core 2.2 and the CLI as well. Let's verify that we have our CLI. And now let's create our application. So type .NET new, and then the template you want to use, and then the name or app. So I'm just following the same pattern of the name that I had for my other types of apps. I'm gonna let that create, and I'm going to actually repeat the steps that will happen in the Azure DevOps. So the first step it will do is a restore, and that will just install all the NuGet package. So I'm just going to have that open. And then the next thing it's going to do is a build, which will create the bin folder and all of the binaries that it's going to need. And after that, in order to actually run the application, let me just expand this so you guys can see. So it created a bin debug netcore app 2.2. And this ASP netcore app app.dll is actually very important because that's where we're going to be running our application from. So I'm just want to show you real quickly actually how to do that. Netcore. You're going to type .NET ASP netcore app.dll. Okay. And then that will spin up Kestrel, and we will go to the browser. So your app should look something like this. I'm going to refresh it. So exactly like this. And keep in mind these configurations to actually run the application will be important once you go to the release. So let's first commit this, and we'll configure the Azure DevOps. So I'm going to say added ASP.NET Core -app, and make sure there's nothing in the bin because you don't want to commit any of your binaries. All right, and then let's just push that up. Let's go over to our Azure DevOps. So click the rocket ship. Should take us to our build pipeline. So I want to not go in too much detail of like Azure DevOps since I already had a previous tutorial of Azure DevOps with ASP.NET Core. This one, I just want to show you some of the small differences between the two. So click the classic editor here. Make sure you choose your right repository. And we're going to use a template here. We're going to use the core template. And like previously, we have all of these steps and we have all these tabs. The only one we're going to configure is our triggers. So first, let's disable the tests since we don't need it. Let's go to our agent job 1 and our pipelines and configure some other things. So we know the directory of our ASP.NET Core project, since it doesn't really matter since because there's only one CS proj. It won't really interfere with any of the other ones, but in case you have any other ones, make sure you specify the project you're going to want to build here, okay? And then you can be more verbose and actually specify like this if you really want to, but it doesn't really matter. And then the agent pool, I'm going to set it to hosted Ubuntu since I want to show you guys with the Ubuntu system. ASP.NET Core app CI, okay. So this restore, like similar to what we did, the build, similar to what we did, the publish will create a zip file. You want to uncheck publish web projects here since we don't have a web config because we are not doing this in a Windows environment. It will not create one for us. So make sure this is checked off if you are in a Linux environment. And this will just put it in a place for the release to pick up. So let's go to trigger. You click enable trigger. And then you can obviously do the same thing where you include ASP.NET Core -app. Include all of the subdirectories there if you want. I'm just going to click Save Changes. And back to our build. Similar to before, it won't be in this list unless you run. So you click this little folder button here. Click here. And I'm just going to queue a build up. I'm going to do it with the hosted Ubuntu. We're just going to watch that queue off, and then I'll come back to this. So we'll go to release. I'm going to create a new release, new pipeline. And we're going to do the Azure App Service deployment. And then we're going to configure the task, or you can click up here. And this will be very simple. Make sure you synchronize your accounts, your Azure DevOps accounts ahead of time, or you can do it right here. I have it on this one. And you can choose Linux. And just always give this a refresh in case you couldn't find it. So I've named mine Just Here Learning Linux app. And go down to this now, and everything should be configured here. So one of the things I mentioned earlier about how to actually run the application is you have to type .NET and then the path to the DLL. So this is where you would type it here, the startup command, so .NET. And you don't actually just type ASP.NET core-app.dll. You actually have to put in the directory building up to it. So it's in home, site, www root. And I'll show you how to actually find this once we actually deploy everything. So just keep in mind that this is the default location. If you are using a container or you've done some special configurations, it won't be in this location, okay? So this is the one you'll need to actually run. Obviously change this part of it if you need to get your application running, all right? So that's all you have to do here. Let's go to our pipeline. Let's add our artifact, which is the artifact from the build we just created. Choose that artifact and add that. I'll give this ASP.NET Core app cd and add a trigger to any time that the build completes. We will also run ours. Click this in here, and then over here, similar to before, if you want to add any of the triggers or anything like that to kind of make sure you have an approval process, you can also do that here. So let's save this and go back to our build to make sure that actually completed. Perfect. So you see that that went green. Just kind of click into it to see that they restore, build, publish. Remember, if you did not do the checkbox, publish right here will fail, okay? Unless you're obviously doing it from a Windows environment, which then it won't. So let's go here and create a release. And we're going to take the build that we just did. And let me just make sure we check this off so we have it. Create. And once that's been queued, just click into it since it won't refresh on its own. Make sure you click deploy. So if you manually trigger something, you have to go into the step and actually click deploy. So if you don't do that, you'll just be watching something and expecting something to happen. So keep that in mind. But if it's automatic, you'll obviously see it trigger and go off on its own. So we'll just give that a second to finish, and then we'll spin up everything and go over to the app service, which I will show you. If your application is not running, it might be because the path to the DLL is incorrect, but if it is running at that moment, then you don't have to worry about anything else. All right, so the release is now completed. Let's go over to the Azure Portal. So portal.azure.com. We'll just make sure the application is running, and then I will show you how I got the configuration to run .NET. So I'm going to go to App Service, choose my Linux app. If you guys really want a tutorial on how to set up a Linux application, just let me know, but it's very trivial. It's very similar to the way I set up the Windows one, except for check off all of the Linux variations. But you have to create a Linux variation of your resource group and your app service plan. So let's go here first and make sure our application is running. Perfect. So that matches exactly what we had here. And now I want to show you how I got to that directory. So I want to just open it up first. I'm going to go back here, click edit here, click this, and go here. So this directory, right? And if you are running a Node.js or any other application too, this might come in handy to figure out where to configure this whole thing. So you're going to go to App Service. We're going to go to Advanced Tools. We're going to click Go. So this is Kudu. This is their kind of web management thing. Go to Bash or SSH, up to you. So you can kind of see home. So what we're going to expect to see is site, right? And when inside site, we're expecting to see www root, because that is exactly the directory I put in. And inside of this, we are expecting to see our ASP.NET Core-app.dll. So imagine the application starting off in the root of this directory, they put .NET and then they put this full path and into this. So if your release somehow is not configured in this exact same way, and there seems to be some nested foldering going on, I've seen that before, depending on the type of job agent you use. It could be in like a release 2, agent underscore, and then blah, blah, blah. But if it's in nested folders, your job is to find where this DLL is and then copy that full path. Take that full path, put .NET, and put it all right here, okay? Ideally, that would not be the case where you have some crazy nested scenario, but if it is, that's how you would configure it, and maybe you can change your build system to do so accordingly. Okay, and that's the end of this tutorial, guys. A special shout out to Saqib for suggesting I make the Linux version of this. I hope you were able to find this especially helpful. But as always, guys, make sure you like this video to help continue to grow the channel. Subscribe if you want to see more. And in the past few days, the channel has been getting a lot more comments, a lot more subscribers. So thanks so much, guys.